Good evening, everyone. So it's been a while since my last IGTV episode, and I thought I'd do this one on this edge of the River Avon. You can see it here. I'm currently walking Enzo, and it is currently high tide. You can see the M5 bridge over there. You can see the Avonmouth docks over there in the distance, and you can see the water really close to where I'm sitting. And as someone who moved to Bristol a few years ago, I remember thinking, wait a minute, but if you think of it, Avonmouth Docks over there, but Bristol Harbour side, you'd have to follow this river and keep going for a significant amount of time before you actually reach Bristol. And I remember always thinking, why did Bristol Harbour side become so big and so competitive? It was the biggest in the UK until it got overtaken by Liverpool in the 1970s. And I was speaking to my father-in-law actually, and he was telling me that the reason Bristol is port developed so quickly is because of its tide. So a lot of you will know we live in a city that is home to the second biggest tidal range in the world. So between high tide and low tide here in Bristol, along this river, we get a difference of about 14 meters. So currently here, we've got the water really close to me, but if I were to come back in about 8 hours or so, the water would be significantly lower, and we'd have a significant drop of about 14 meters. And I remember thinking, well, how I don't quite understand the link between the tidal range and the development of the harbour side. And the bottom line is the fact that at the time, a few hundred years ago, boats didn't have engines; they used sails. And one of the biggest issues with ports around the UK is that depending on the winds, you could either sail into a port or you got stuck out there and you had to wait for the winds to pick up. That wasn't the case of Bristol. Because of the tide, even if there was no wind whatsoever, you could just bob your boat on the water and the tide would push you into Bristol Harbour side. And once you finished what you had to do in Bristol Harbour side, you could literally sit on the water, and the gravity and the tide would pull you back out into the Severn Estuary and off into the sea and Atlantic Ocean you went. Just keeping an eye there, because you can see Enzo in the background. And I thought that was a fascinating fact. And obviously when boats developed steam and developed engines, Bristol became a bit of an inconvenience, because you can now only go into the harbour twice a day at high tide, and so ports like Liverpool started to gain the forefront, and Liverpool ended up becoming the biggest port in the